It was an unusually quiet evening in Fenton, Ohio. People in this little town cherished their calm lives, where not much ever happened. But that evening, an odd stillness seemed to hang in the air, as though something significant was brewing beneath the surface. Luther Banks, a tall, strong-built black man in his late 50s, drove his aging gray sedan down Oakwood Avenue. To anyone watching, he looked like any other man heading home after a long day. But Luther wasn't just any man, was an undercover FBI agent, tasked with dismantling a dangerous gang suspected of dealing arms in Fenton. This was no ordinary operation. The gang's reach extended far beyond the town's borders, with deep ties to powerful people. For months, Luther had worked undercover, gathering evidence one piece at a time. And tonight, he had an important lead to follow on that could potentially crack the case wide open. As he drove down the dimly lit street, the faint sound of a siren startled him. His pulse quickened as he noticed the flashing red and blue lights in his rearview mirror. A police car was tailing him. Luther had always been careful not to attract attention, but in this line of work, nothing was ever certain. He eased his car to the side of the road, his mind racing through possibilities. Was this a routine stop, or had someone recognized him? The police car came to a halt behind him, and Officer Roy Hemming stepped out. Roy was a man well known in Fenton, though not for the right reasons. His temper and discriminatory behavior, particularly toward people of color, had long been whispered about, but never directly confronted. Roy approached Luther's car with the swagger that exuded arrogance. "Out late, aren't you?" Roy sneered, resting his hand on the holster at his hip. "Where are you headed?" Luther kept his voice steady. "Just heading home, officer. Is there a problem?" Roy leaned down, his eyes narrowing as he scrutinized Luther's face. "Funny," he said, his tone dripping with suspicion. "Haven't seen you around these parts before. Let me see your license and registration." Luther complied, handing over the requested documents. Roy scanned them, his expression darkening as he read Luther's name. "You're a long way from home, Luther Banks. Where exactly do you work?" Sticking to his cover story, Luther replied, "Willis Construction Company over in Cleveland. I'm just helping out with a few projects here." Roy snorted, clearly unconvinced. "Step out of the car," he ordered. Luther hesitated, knowing this could escalate quickly. But he complied, moving slowly and deliberately. As soon as he stepped out, Roy grabbed his arm and twisted it behind his back, snapping on a pair of handcuffs. The rough treatment caused Luther to wince, but he remained calm, knowing he couldn't blow his cover. A small crowd began to gather, their murmurs filling the air as they watched from a distance. Some pulled out their phones to record the incident, but no one dared intervene. Luther's mind raced as Roy tightened his grip. "You think you can lie to me?" Roy hissed. "You don't belong here." Luther bit back a retort, his fists clenching at his sides. He needed to find a way out of this without jeopardizing months of work. But as Roy shoved him toward the squad car, it became clear that this wasn't going to be simple. Nearby, another officer, Patricia Harvey, had just finished a routine traffic stop. Patricia was new to the force, a young woman with a strong sense of justice. She noticed the commotion and approached, her brow furrowing as she saw Roy manhandling Luther. "What's going on here?" Patricia asked, her tone firm but calm. Roy glared at her. "Just handling business. This guy's a troublemaker if you ask me." Patricia tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. "Troublemaker? He looks like he was just driving home." Roy rolled his eyes. "Patricia, you're new here. Don't question me on this." But Patricia wasn't one to back down. She stepped closer to the squad car where Luther was seated, peering through the window to meet his gaze. There was something in his eyes, a calm strength that seemed out of place for an ordinary civilian. "What's your name?" she asked quietly. "Luther Banks," he replied, his voice steady. Patricia glanced at his ID, noticing a small, barely visible mark near his name, a detail that sparked her curiosity. She turned to Roy. "I think we need to handle this at the station." Roy scoffed. "Why? I've got it under control." "It's procedure," Patricia insisted, her tone leaving no room for argument. Begrudgingly, Roy agreed, and they drove to the station. Once there, Patricia waited until they had a private moment. She motioned for Luther to speak, and he finally revealed his FBI badge. Her eyes widened in shock and admiration. "Undercover," she whispered. Luther nodded. "I'm investigating a dangerous gang. I couldn't blow my cover back there." Patricia's mind raced. She realized Roy's actions could jeopardize not only Luther's mission, but also the safety of everyone involved. Determined to make things right, she decided to act. Using her access to the station's resources, she discreetly gathered evidence of Roy's misconduct, including footage from the traffic stop. Meanwhile, Luther shared critical information about his case, and Patricia vowed to help him see it through. Over the next few days, they worked together, uncovering more about the gang's operations and their ties to local authorities. The tension between Patricia and Roy reached a boiling point when she confronted him with the evidence she had gathered. "Your actions put an innocent man's life at risk," she said, her voice firm. "You're done, Roy." As the investigation unfolded, Roy's misconduct was exposed, leading to his suspension. Luther's mission continued, and with Patricia's help, he was able to dismantle the gang's operations. The town of Fenton, once silent and complicit, began to reckon with its own issues. Spurred by the bravery of those who chose to stand up for what was right. In the end, justice prevailed. Luther returned to his work with renewed determination, and Patricia emerged as a hero in her own right, a beacon of hope in a town that had long ignored its problems. And this brings us to the end of the story. Thank you for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories. Have a nice day.